Pretty crazy balance patch, huh? Let's dive right into this. Actually, before we get started, I have a statement I need to read from my lawyers. Okay. I, state your name, am not claiming that any statement I make in this video is objective fact, for I am a low elo player who in fact does not understand the exact way that everything in the entirety of the game of Deadlock functions to a perfect level. Nor do I have the experience to understand all of the mathematical changes to scaling for many characters. I also do not have perfect item knowledge, because I am in fact a chud player in piss-low Deadlock. That being said, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I would still like to discuss the changes as well as give my opinions on how I feel about them, even knowing that my opinions are probably wrong and are likely to change as we all get used to the vast array of changes recently released. Again, I'll be discussing more about how I feel about the changes and not making objective statements, because I understand that I am not educated enough to make statements about the meta as a whole. Also, don't forget to emphasize the chud and the... I'm not supposed to read that. Those are notes from the Emissary Players Union legal team. Welcome to Deadlock Daily number 2. My name is October. Okay, let's actually talk about what changed here. So, a couple of movement changes. Just some making things a little bit more consistent. I think that's a good thing. Having to do frame-perfect inputs for no reason isn't something that I'm a huge fan of, as long as it's not making the skill ceiling too low, and I don't think that this is. A couple of quality of life changes to the shrine. They just changed the way it's balanced a little bit. It doesn't attack under the shrine anymore, which was kind of weird to begin with. There's also veils under the shrine that's mentioned a little bit later. There's a lot of trooper changes in here and bounty changes to towers, and I believe the goal with this is to expedite the match time, because some games, as you know, can go on for very, very, very long. So you'll see there's all kinds of changes here, from bounty changes to troopers getting regen, magic troopers do more damage after every minute, so mid-boss got a couple of changes as well. I'm not entirely 100% sure how much this changes mid-boss. I mean, the base HP had an increase, which means that you probably have to wait a little bit longer to kill it. It announcing that it's there when it gets to 50% instead of 70%, I guess is a decent change for if you're trying to do it sneakily, but most of the time it's pretty obvious when you're going to do it. Rejuve drop duration, I don't know really how that changes much. I guess it gives the other team less time. The Rejuve duration no longer refreshes when hitting a crystal later. I guess it would refresh every single time you'd hit one, and now it does not. It only lets you do it after the first one. Minimap now indicates if the urn is a favored, neutral, or unfavored urn. This is a change that kind of plays into a video I released a few days ago talking about the jungle camp timer thing, giving the player more information. I'm glad this is in the game because it was really confusing, and if you ever wanted to check, then you'd have to wait to reset the urn, and if urn was neutral when the other team was up, they might try and run it once they saw that you had it. So it was really just, you kind of had to wait until you're like way down, or you just had to get lucky. So we'll see how that changes things. I think that is a perfectly great and good change. It was always going to happen as well, just because it was a little bit, not confusing, but a little bit hard to compute on the fly whether or not it was neutral favored or unfavored. They added a couple of neutral camps. These camps are located, it says Archmother York Walker, which is the Yellow Lane Walker, and the Hidden King Green Walker. 2 normal creeps and 3 weak creeps. It's pretty cool that, that part of the map was pretty barren. I didn't see people use it other than to really run away. And there were, I believe, camps on that side of the map at one point a long time ago, and they've now put one back in those areas just to flesh out the map a little bit more. Good change. Move the mid lane bridge above the Hidden King base entrance more to the middle of the 2 edges. I never noticed. So I guess that means that it wasn't centered the way they wanted it to be, which is kind of weird. But then a very big change here. Subsequent CC reduction increased. That's huge, because CC chaining is such a prominent part of this game in general. And the fact that it's received, a nerf to some degree, I think is pretty good. We'll see how that ends up playing out. I think that CC is obviously still very strong, but it makes it a little bit weaker, a little bit less frustrating when you get, hit by knockdown, and then you get Abrams shoulder charge, and then you get Doorman ulted, like all the kind of stuff. Or Wraith ulted, old Wraith ult. I guess now it's a little bit different, but, Dynamo ulted, all that kind of stuff. You get all that back-to-back Lash ult. It's a little bit less egregious now. Especially, you can buy items to reduce it even more. That's good. I don't know what this means. I have no idea what this means. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I would love for somebody to let me know. I'm not sure. I don't know. And I guess they made it so melee abilities now proc a little bit more consistently. Maybe if you were stunned or something, they didn't proc before. I'm not sure. Street Brawl became more of a Mario Party game mode. That's really, really cool. Awesome. Now let's move on to the items. Like I said, I'm not a king of itemization, but I will say a couple of things about these things here. Golden Goose Egg seems like it's really only useful for support characters like Paige. I think probably buys this item, but it's not going to be something that most characters are going to buy, I think. I could be proven wrong. I'm sure some top player is going to be like, this Golden Goose strategy has broken the game right open. It was also bugged if you were using mods, I believe. I saw that it was just like not in the shop menu, so if you don't see it and you're using mods, that's probably why. That might be patched by now. I'm not 100% sure. They release a lot of micro patches pretty quick to fix performance and stuff like that. Extended magazine weapon damage increase, yeah, that's fine. High velocity rounds, this is a pretty big buff, I think. So, that's nice for high velocity rounds users. Long range fall off range increased from 4% to 8%. I'm not really sure if that's a good change or not, but it is a buff, so... Active reload, you can now reload while full. Already full when carrying this item. That's cool, I guess. You can get the bullet lifesteal, and I believe it gives you a couple more bullets, right? I'm not 100% sure, because I haven't used active reload in a long time. I haven't played, like, Wraith in a long time. She was the only character I used that used it. Opening rounds got some decent buffs, so that's good for that. I never really saw that item. I saw it on a couple characters. I would see Vindicta run it sometimes. I'm not really sure, like, I think it was just a little weak, and that's probably why people weren't using it. Swift Striker, minor buff, that's fine. Mystic Shot, minor buff. Split Shot got a couple of changes. Cooldown reduction, which you'll see with a lot of active items. Now supports custom count angles per hero. That's cool. There are some characters that it was sort of weird. I know that Yamato, you can split shot with the right click, and it's kind of weird. They let now Celeste use it. Backstabber renamed to Stalker. This seems like a big buff to this item. And especially when it comes to the fact that there is a certain character that I think uses this item that got really heavily buffed. It could be a very good item now. Melee charge, heavy melee abilities. Again, I don't remember everything that's heavy melee. I know that Viscous tier 3 punch becomes heavy melee. I don't know if Drifter Rend is heavy melee. I assume it is. So that's a good quality of life change for those people. Spirit Shredder bullets and Spirit Rend got a buff. We'll see that a little bit later. That's pretty cool, I guess. I thought the item was probably a little weak. I didn't see it used in a lot of builds, just like scrolling through random builds. But maybe I'm wrong about that. Weakening Headshot, minor change. Ballistic Enhancement. I never used this item. And it's relatively new still, so I'm not sure exactly how much this changes, so I'll just say that it got a little bit of a adjustment. Maybe a minor buff overall. Hunter's Aura got adjusted. Weighted Shots got a pretty big buff, because now it builds from slowing bullets and has the slowing bullets passive. That's pretty good. Doesn't have this negative penalty anymore for move speed, which is nice. You see, like, all kinds of good stuff for that. So that item might become a little bit more viable now. I didn't see a lot of people using weighted shots either, and it was probably because of this stuff right here. So, Express Shot, this is a little bit of a minor change. It's cool, I've seen it. Blood Tribute, that seems like a buff to me. the characters that use Blood Tribute that relied on their healing to keep themselves alive while using it, that seems like a pretty big buff to me, so cool. Like I said, Spirit Rend got a buff as well. Crushing Fist, same changes with the heavy melee charge. Frenzy, that's pretty big buff, it looks like. Spiritual Overflow got a little bit of a buff as well. Extra health, do people use this item? Like, what characters use this item? Because I ran Abrams and I didn't use extra health. I don't know if this item is just terrible or what, but Enduring Speed, fixed slow resistance interaction with dash slows. I did not know that was a bug. That's cool. I'm glad they fixed that. Restorative Locket got a buff. There's only a few characters I think use this. I know that at one point Shiv was using this item. Maybe like Billy uses it. I'm not 100% sure. And this is like a melee character item. So, good buffs for those people who use that. Return Fire got some quality of life changed. A little bit of a nerf to its damage returned, which was probably good. Return Fire has always been one of those items that it's either incredibly strong or it's a little too weak, and they always seem to have to like tweak this up or down. So, yeah. But it's good that they made it more consistent with actually returning the damage. And it didn't need to be headshots, especially, so it's nice that you're going to always hit the target's body, be consistent with that. The damage threshold increased on both of the shieldings. We'll see Spirit Shielding somewhere down here. I believe got the same change. I say that. I don't see it on here, so I guess not. So Weapon Shielding got a little bit of a adjustment. I don't know if that's a buff or a nerf overall. Bullet Resilience and Spirit Resilience both got the same change. It's a buff to these two things. I think it's a buff to the item more often than not, and a nerf to it when you're low on health. I think that's probably a buff overall, but we'll see. Maybe that's a nerf. Life Strike. This is one of those items that I just don't know. Like, this is some math stuff that some top players are going to have to figure out if it's better or worse. Looks like it's worse early on, but maybe better later in the game, so it scales a bit better. Majestic Leap getting the increased barrier, that's nice. I didn't think Trophy Collector needed a buff. The characters that used it, I thought it was pretty good for, but I guess they thought that the soul per minute thing needed to go up. It's cool. Dispel Magic, I thought was a pretty bad item. Like, you know, I play Vindicta. I had to use it before this recent patch because you couldn't parry during flight, and you'd have to use it to deal with knockdown or stuns or whatever while you're flying. I always thought it seemed a little weak for a 3200 item because the cooldown is a really long time for what it is. But it's nice to see that get reduced. Maybe people will buy that a little bit more often now. Fortitude. I just don't know about Fortitude. I like never see this item ran, but I also don't pay a lot of attention to it, so I could just be wrong. Spellbreaker got a little bit of a nerf. That's interesting. We'll see if that ends up staying overall. Like I said, a lot of these items that activate under certain conditions, their cooldowns got reduced. They want the items to be active more often, and I assume this is because of some of those earlier changes I mentioned, where we talk about they're wanting to increase the speed of games. So you want items to be active more often because you want the wacky effects to happen more often. You can see a direction that they're taking the game, which I like with this patch for sure. Inhibitor. So it looks like you make the enemies the enemies will do slightly more damage after shooting them, but you also get a little bit more weapon damage instead. So that seems like just a pure adjustment for me. Remains to be seen whether or not that makes the item worse or not. It probably does, because I think that debuffs are very, very strong, and a lot of times you want the debuff to be stronger than the buff it gives you. Cheat Death. This is a weird item. I don't see it ran a lot, but I'm a low elo player. I'm not a huge fan of it personally, but, you know, they're being consistent here. They don't want it to be... I actually don't really know what this change is. It kind of just feels like a thing for the sake of it. But anyways. Colossus. This is a big buff to this item. I mean, Colossus... I ran an Abrams build that I did not lose a game on prior to this most recent patch. It did not have Colossus in it. I imagine that it would now. That's a crazy buff to that item. Huge amount of melee damage when you stack that with other items. Siphon bullets. This is a change that is probably a buff, I think. Because you're gonna steal more max HP from higher health targets, but you're gonna steal a little bit less from lower health targets. Probably a buff overall because you would buy siphon bullets to, hurt the tank characters anyways. So that's cool. Mystic regeneration, got a little bit of a buff. Rusted barrel, which I think is a very good item for what it is. Got a cooldown reduction. Arcane surge, getting a pretty big buff, sizable buff there. This one really confuses me. Like I said, slowing Hex, this buff is in line with all these other active item changes we've seen so far. Slowing Hex seemed like one of the best items in the game. It's very cheap. It stops a lot of movement abilities. I don't really know why we're buffing Slowing Hex. I feel like it's one of the most commonly bought utility items. Suppressor, little buff. Spirit Sap, little bit of a buff as well, it looks like. And like I said, the cooldown happening more often, wanting to speed up games in line. That's a big buff for Decay, I feel like. A 5% buff on healing reduction is crazy. Wow. I didn't see that the first time I read through. Yet again, active item with the cooldown reduction. Knockdown. Targets who are in the air will fall faster. Good quality of life change, I think. If you're knocking a character down, you want to be able to get to them, and there's probably some weird stuff that was happening with that. Seems like a tweak. Glad they did not make knockdown active more often, like some of these other active items, because it's already really good. Radiant regeneration, got some buffs as well. Tank Buster. That's a decent... That is a decent buff to that item. Torment Pulse, got a little bit of an adjustment. Slight nerf to the damage, but no longer will wake up enemies. That's nice. Disarming Hex. This is a big buff to this item. Disarming Hex is one of the weaker. It wasn't terrible, but I saw a lot of people saying that it just wasn't worth buying over Metal Skin a lot of the time unless like multiple people on your team were buying it for one gun carry. This might be a significantly better item now for you to buy just for duels against gun characters, so that's nice. Magic Carpet buffs, love to see it. That's an item I'd never see, and it's funny, so we like that. Active item going down. Cursed Relic got a nerf. Probably the right decision because the item will always be incredibly strong no matter what, and support characters can just run this anyways, and it doesn't really matter because their damage is negligent anyways. Now has a unit target option. Did not see this for Vortex Web either. That's interesting. We'll see how that changes, how people use that item instead of just throwing it on the ground. That's pretty nice. I guess you can do that to throw it like on an ally or something. Okay, that's all of the item changes. We got through that relatively quickly. Let's talk about the heroes. So I'm not going to go crazy into the numbers here on this stuff because there are a lot of changes. I will say this. Abrams. I played him last update as a low elo player, and it felt like I was playing the video game on peaceful mode. Legitimately. Like, I could just do whatever I wanted. They did something to him. Because when you look through all these changes here, it doesn't really look like he got nerfed. And in fact, on the actual overview for the patch, it says that Abrams got adjusted, air quotes. He definitely feels weaker, at least in the early game. My lane opponents were able to do significantly more against me compared to what they were in the last patch. So that is a good thing if that is true. Now, does this mean that Abrams is not a good character? That will remain to be seen. I think he's probably still good because this doesn't really seem like a nerf. You might... just have to change the items that you build on him, and he'll still be very good. But if they were able to tone down his toxicity just a little bit as the just shoulder charge into instant death character, that's good. We will see if this, actually affects that. But they definitely did something to him. He feels a little bit weaker in the early parts of the game. Apollo, nerfs. I mean, this character was one of the most complained about characters in the game. What did he actually deserve these nerfs? I'm not 100% sure. Man, he's frustrating to lane against, or he was frustrating to lane against. He still feels like a really, really powerful early game character, and then just kind of falls off a cliff. So, I don't know what the goal is with this guy now. I think his ult still needs some changes to the way it functions. It's really weird that it can still hit through walls and around cover and all that stuff. I think if they change some of that stuff, you can give him some of his power back. Bebop, massive changes. Tier changing buff here for Bebop. Hook can now be cancelled. We'll see if that means anything. Billy, I don't know if he technically got considered nerfed. He was one of the better characters in the last patch. As I'm sure you know, the bruiser characters were very, very good. Tanky, up close, in your face characters. They were very good. We'll see how Billy plays now. I don't have a lot to say here, because there's, like I said, there's a lot of little changes. If you play any of these characters, you can give me a better breakdown into this. I just don't play them. So, I don't know how much Rising Ram charge duration being reduced from 0.51 to 3 seconds affects him. I just don't know, So, we'll see how that works. Calico got a lot of changes. A lot of changes. A lot of buffs. I went from not seeing this character at all in my elo, which is in Emissary, to I saw this character in almost every single game I played. I think I played 6 yesterday, and I saw her in 4 or 5. Now, that could just be that people are trying out the new changes. They're not that good overall, and we'll find out in a couple of weeks that people aren't playing her anymore. But I think she feels a lot better, a lot more actually usable as a character. Maybe she's a bit too strong. Remains to be seen, but yeah, she got buffed pretty hard, I think. Celeste, take this character out to the shed, man. Unfortunately, they're nerfing kind of her quirk. I just wish they'd tune down the abilities a little bit more, because the movement is really strong, right? But if she was an actual glass cannon of a character that had crazy movement, I think it'd be fine. The problem was she wasn't a glass cannon. She was a tank. You would expect her to be a sort of flimsy, high damage, high mobility character, and in fact, she was just really good at everything. Her ultimate, still functioning the way it does, is really frustrating, will always be annoying. At least we can ban her now. She's a little bit more floaty, but you lose a little bit of air control, so Celeste players, we'll see how that movement changes. This guy got a lot, and, he needed stuff based on what a lot of the top players were saying, and I agree. I did not see a lot of Doorman. Doorman felt like he really had to outplay you before. He's got some BS now. So he was one of the characters that got these crazy changes. I think that these ult changes don't survive the next couple of weeks, probably, because it's a little ridiculous. A little insane. I mean, your tier 3 hotel guest, which is your ultimate, making you unstoppable while it's channeled, and if a person fails to check out, it goes on a 10-second cooldown. It's crazy. Now, I understand this is a way to counteract, Apollo Riposte, or counterspelling it instead of taking the damage when you exit it. All that kind of stuff. I understand that. Making it go to a 10-second cooldown so you can use it again is really crazy. Because remember, you can cast this. Now, there's a change where if if you cast it on somebody and they die while you're casting it, you don't lose the cooldown. So you can use this kind of as a point-and-click stun. Doorman player I was playing with yesterday, like, talked about that, and that was something I had not thought about. So we'll see how that works. We'll see if this guy ends up surviving. This stuff right here, luggage cart, this is kind of toxic right here. This is Abrams shoulder charge, but a little bit harder to hit kind of vibe. I think the ult changes were probably the thing that is a little bit too crazy for me. Some of this other stuff is neat. I did see, though, that some Doorman players were complaining that a lot of the way that his abilities worked changed pretty drastically, so it's going to take some getting used to for them. But yeah, good buffs for him. Okay, guys, you got what you wanted. Everybody that's below, I would say, Phantom, good luck. Okay? That includes me. This character, I don't know what the top player want to see this character be meta is, or to be a strong pick at the top of the game is. I saw that he was getting picked a little bit in Deadlock Night Shift prior to the buffs, but, I mean, it was like right before. I believe it was in the Night Shift right before this patch came out that he was picked a couple of times. He got turbo buffed, man. Like, these are crazy buffs. Now, it is in line with their philosophy for most of the characters, which is just buff the living hell out of them because you can. I don't know who was just like, man, I really love playing against Drifter, and I want to see Drifter in my games more often. I don't like him. And I get that it's like low elo player thing, but I just don't like him. Because even if I'm playing around him smart, it does not mean my teammates are. Which, I'm not playing around him smart, but it doesn't mean that my teammates are playing around him smart at this elo. And I think one of the biggest things, where is it in here? You get your buffs. Yeah, here you go. Blood Scent now grants Drifter the same amount of permanent bonus weapon damage when an isolated hero dies nearby, whether Drifter gets the assist or the kill. That's crazy, by the way. That's really crazy. He doesn't even have to get the finishing blow. It can be any other character on an isolated hero. And, like I said, during his ult, every target is considered isolated in a team fight. So think about that for a second. I think this character is going to be one of the first that is going to be very, very, very heavily complained about, because he's already heavily complained about outside of the top tiers of the game, even though he wasn't that great in this last patch. I'm gonna take some water real quick. I'm not really sure. I don't think this guy's going to end up surviving very long either, because he is super, super frustrating to play against when he's really strong, more so than some other characters. I mean, he feels like he can just bowl you over. Yeah, so. Okay, Dynamo. He got some adjustments. I don't know if these are buffs or nerfs. I think people probably aren't going to like the stomp changes. I don't know. You know, really, Dynamo players, let me know what you think if you happen to watch this video. The stomp was a bit crazy with how far the range was before. We'll see. We'll see how that ends up working. Lots of changes for him. Don't play him, so. Graves, okay. Grasping Hands buff is a decision. This character, she can just kind of stay as she is. She doesn't need to be great. She's always going to be decent in lower ranks, and she's probably not going to be good in the top ranks. That's the way she should be. She should be a pub stomp, like, low skill character and nothing more, in my opinion. So we'll just leave her at that. Sorry, Graves players, I'm really sorry, but aiming is a thing that almost everybody in this game has to do, and your character just doesn't have to do it. 2 of your abilities play the game for you. So, sorry. I'm toxic, I get it. Haze. There were a lot of changes here. I saw some Haze players complaining. When do Haze players not complain about the strength of their character, though? Bullet Dance seemed to get pretty buffed. I don't know. I don't think Haze was, like, crazy good. Obviously, if she's fed, she's really good. But outside of that, she felt really counterable to me. I don't think any of these move the needle. Infernus, he got his concussive combustion ult is now gigantic. I don't know if you've seen that. We'll see how long that ends up lasting. It's kind of crazy. Infernus is a character that they need to be very careful with, because he is one of those characters with the way that Afterburn functions as an ability, that it goes from him being terrible like he was last patch to being really, really good really easily. Anyways, we'll see how Infernus ends up looking. I think these are buffs. Like I said, there's some things that, you know, get nerfed a little bit, but it's kind of just adjusted. A lot of these things, you take a little bit of something, you give a little bit of something, you take a little bit of something away. Or you change a little bit how some things work. So, yeah. Ivy, they changed the way that she works a lot, as you can tell here. The biggest thing I can see is that Ivy players were saying that she is more support-oriented now. We'll see how that ends up working overall. I thought that Ivy was fine in the last patch, personally. I remember there were several months ago, around like November time when I was playing again, she was kind of like really good. She felt very versatile. So they might have taken some of that away, but she didn't really feel super oppressive. I don't know the exact numbers on all these changes. Like, there's a lot here. So Ivy players, let me know how you feel about that. Kelvin is back, y'all. He's back. He functions a little bit differently, but he got some nice quality of life changes with the way beam works. I'm only going a little bit further into Kelvin. I have a duo that plays Kelvin, and we talked about it a lot. Yeah, he got a nice few quality of life changes. Frozen Shelter seems a little bit bugged. He said that it was not able to be cast on himself yesterday. Maybe there was a mistake there, or maybe it's a bug and it's already been fixed. I'm not sure. But this is funny, like the way Frozen Shelter works now. Arctic Beam, it got a little bit of a nerf in terms of how hard it CCs you, but you're allowed to use other things now while doing it, which is nice. Because he felt like a very, very weak character in the last patch. Like, I would never, ever see him. So, Lady Geist, she got a couple of nerfs. A couple of nerfs to her life drain, which is weird. Because I didn't think that life drain... I thought life drain was, like, the worst part of her kit. I guess, actually, never mind. It does get buffs overall. It's weaker to start, but gets a little bit stronger later. I thought Lady Geist was fine. Maybe could use a little bit of buffs, but Soul Exchange changes are not going to be fun for people. That ultimate is not fun to play against. So, Lash, increased sparkles, undocumented parry change, which is hilarious. He got nerfed a little bit, but he got a couple of quality of life change things as well. He was performing pretty well in the last patch from what a lot of people were saying. I understand at the top of the game, it might be easy to counterspell his ultimate, but it feels really difficult as a lower elo player to do that. Unlike some other abilities in the game that feel a lot easier to counterspell. I know you don't have to counterspell, but that's, you know, whenever Lash would ult, people would be like, well, just counterspell it, man. It felt pretty hard, because he can time it in his own way, and there's a little bit of a rock, paper, scissors element to when that happens. But Death Slam, it got a little bit weaker, I believe. When I say that, he looks like he got more adjusted than like nerfed necessarily, but I like increased sparkles and the parry change is funny. I don't know what we're doing with this character. I don't know, man. Turret McGinnis is not fun to play against. It's really not fun at all. And we just have more turrets more often. Now Wall spawns turrets as well. I mean, McGinnis needed something. I'm not saying that McGinnis just needs to exist as a bottom tier character the entirety of the time. But, like, giving the turrets melee resist, I just don't know, man. Like, it feels really bizarre. Really, really bizarre. So, good for McGinnis. Mina got nerfed. I think this is necessary. She was pretty strong, I felt like. In particular, the ult was very, very strong, and they nerfed the ult, so that's nice. She gets a little bit more escapability, which is cool. I think she's probably still playable, but, you know. Mirage got a lot of changes. I have no idea how this works. Yeah, I have no idea how this works. You know, like, I don't really... This character is not somebody that I would see often in lower elo. I think he's been kind of mid for a long time. Maybe this makes him a lot better. You know, some name changes for his abilities. Yeah, cool stuff, man. Like, I like seeing sweeping changes to characters that feel like they need them, and he was a character who felt like he needed it. Or it will remain to be seen whether or not he's really good or if he's bad, but, you know. Okay. We're just gonna go past this. No, okay, we'll talk about it. Mo and Krill. He's not fun to play against, like, at all. And I get that this is Deadlock and it's a MOBA, and it doesn't matter if it's fun for me to play against. This is funny. That's very funny. I've seen some funny clips of that already. I don't know why we're buffing Mo and Krill. He feels like Abrams levels of toxic as a character, and I get that he's counterable and all this stuff, but, like, blah, 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 blah. Boring-ass character. Buffing him is annoying. Thank you, Yoshi and the Deadlock dev team, for making me have to see more of this character. Paige got a couple of changes. I think she was one of the characters that was considered adjusted. Her abilities got renamed. I saw that there were online suggestions to the dev team for this, and they changed them, so that's really neat. Congrats to those people. Bookworm is a awesome name, and Plot Armor is incredible as an ability name. So, very, very good stuff there. Paradox got a rework. Her ultimate now does... It's really funny the way her ultimate works now. I saw Paradox players originally complaining about the way this character functioned, but I think that, you know, give it some time and she might still be good. She did get a little nerfed, but, you know, she's been meta at the top of the game for a long time, so maybe they just want to swap some things up. Biggest winner from this patch right here, I think, is this guy right here. Now, I could be wrong about that, but I mean, literally everything. I don't think there is a nerf on this list. I think these are all buffs. Literally all buffs. For the most part. Or, you know, at least gets adjusted. You know, like, there's adjustments made to stuff. If they took something away, they gave him something else. So, that's good to see. Pocket is a character, you know, Affliction as an ultimate is easy to counter relatively, even though that's the thing that is, like, the most annoying about Pocket IMO as a lower elo player. But Pocket is a character that I find really skill expressive and interesting. You know, one of the Deadlock characters that I think is, like, peak design in terms of just what they do, what they're capable of, expressiveness. The character kit just flows together super well. So I'm glad to be seeing a lot more Pocket, because you didn't see him a lot before, or see them a lot before, my apologies. See them a lot before. You not see them a lot before. So, yeah. Rem. We can take this guy out back and put him down, too. A couple of nerfs. So, that's cool, I guess, and then a couple of changes. Rem has been really good for a while, but like I said, it feels like the developers wanted to do a lot more of bringing characters up than bringing the newer characters down to a certain level. So, Rem is a character that got, you know, a couple of changes, a couple of nerfs. doesn't seem to be too crazy, but yeah. Okay. Speaking of biggest changes, this character lost. I'm sorry, but every time I played against 7, and I've played against him a couple of times, 7 just has to become like the ult battery. The gun build, I believe, has just been basically taken out of the game, which... That's tough. I'm sorry, 7 players. I know 7 has always had a high win rate because they are just a fundies character. You didn't see a lot of 7 in Emissary because people's fundies aren't very good. I imagine 7 was more of a, like, Phantom plus character you would see in basically every game, maybe. I take a sip of water. My throat is getting really dry. I mean, he just got nerfed across the board, pretty much. I don't think that he's unplayable, but he feels a little bit more linear from what I've seen. Like, I've only seen people do the ult build. Now, it was literally the first night after the patch released, so there's a good chance that there's, people find different builds, someone finds another way to play him. Oh, right now, we're going to say that he's a loser for this patch. I know his win rates were high, and we wanted to get him nerfed, but speaking of nerfs, they nerfed everything but the thing that Shiv players say makes him broken, in bloodletting. So that's cool, I guess. Killing Blow no longer being a point-and-click ability is nice. It'll make it a little bit more skill expressive. So that's nice as well. Stamina reduction is kind of hilarious, I'm going to be honest with you. He's got less stamina than Yamato, so... Cool, man. Yeah. Shiv is a character that I think needed nerfs, probably, and got nerfs, but the thing that made Shiv the most broken, that all the Shiv players say, is bloodletting, and that is not here. That is the one ability that was not touched. So... Silver got nerfed. This was always going to happen. This character was an undisputed top 3 character in the video game, with Celeste and Abrams, in my opinion. I think those 3 were the undisputed top 3, with probably Abrams and Celeste being 1 and 2, 1A, 1B kind of a vibe, maybe Celeste being 1A favored, and I think Silver was next. I think Silver was that good, and the werewolf form in particular got nerfed pretty hard, so that's good to see. I mean, it just needed to be tuned down. You talk about characters being able to do whatever they want. This character could basically do whatever she wanted. You could be down 5, 10, 15k farm, maybe not 15k, but 10k farm in the middle of the game, and it just didn't matter because your Lycan Curse form was so good. And I will say, I would rather them nerf ult a little bit than leave ult as strong as it is and make her base form, like, a lot weaker. And make her, like, a lot more volatile, where it's like, oh, I'm weaker in this form, but then when I'm weaker in base form, Silver, but then when I get the ult, I go, like, crazy stupid mode. I do tricks on it, kind of a deal. So, I think these are good changes. We'll see how relevant Silver still ends up being. Probably still a decent character, but a lot of other characters got brought up, so I'm sure that we're gonna see an interesting meta shift at the top. We'll see how what the top players do with that. Victor buffs. Fun. I like playing against Victor. I get it. It's a low elo thing. I just didn't like him. He got buffed on basically everything, except it looks like Aura of Suffering got nerfed a little bit. So that's cool, I guess. Yay, I can't wait to see more Victor in my games. I love him. Vindicta. She needed some stuff, and I understand I'm a Vindicta player. I try to be unbiased when it comes to what Vindicta needed. I'm gonna go ahead and say, I think Vindicta probably got a little too much in this patch. Now, I am saying that as a Emissary Vindicta player with a terrible win rate, but I think that she definitely needed something. She felt woefully terrible and underprivileged compared to some of the other characters in this game, And I understand why that is because when she's meta, the top of the game and the upper middle ranks of the game become miserable because she is a character that rewards just good shooting mechanics. Now there's a different problem. So what are the changes that I think are good? Flight change that I think is good. I can now parry in flight. This means that I no longer have to buy Dispel Magic and can buy the item that everybody else uses to deal with bullshit items and ultimate abilities and stun abilities. You can buy Counterspell now and use it without having to cancel flight, which was the biggest thing that I thought that she needed. If this was the only change she got, I think she might move up the tier list based off of that alone. Now, the Crow changes are also good. I like this. You know, you lose a little bit of the... I think you lose a little bit of the debuff overall, but you're a lot more consistent with it, okay? It doesn't, like, ricochet anymore, so it's not going to hit a wide area if you hit one target accurately, but you are going to hit that one target more consistently than you were before. I think that's a great change, because I thought that Crow was... It really was not amazing for... Like, it was amazing when you hit it, but was it so good that it needed to be that difficult to hit? I don't think so. So I was a fan of that. Changes to Assassinate. That's cool. A little bit of a buff. Cool. This is a pretty crazy change. The stacks might be broken. Now, somebody was saying that there was something about making it more readable as opposed to just like showing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stacks. I was playing in a game, I had like 10 kills and I had 60 stacks. I don't know if that was a bug, like a visual bug, or if that was an actual bug with the way it was working. There's going to be all kinds of bugs that they're going to, you know, iron out, so whatever. Let me talk about the change that I do not like, okay? This right here. Now, Infinite Flight used to be on this character. Now, people say it requires skill. I agree with that. Infinite Flight Vindicta makes her one of the most hated characters in the game. And I understand why. Because it's not fun. When she is fed, she is now actually a potential carry character again. Whereas before, you know, in this past patch, I felt like you basically had to have, like... There was one instance in which I thought she was really, really good. If you were carrying the game with somebody else close to equal farm, if you were not the sole target that the enemy team was counter-buying for, Vindicta was incredible in the last patch, in my opinion. But if you were the most fed on the team, she was one of the easiest carries to counter in the entire game. You know, probably up there with, like, Grey Talon, easy to counter. I think that these changes will make her a little bit better as a solo carry. There's a couple of things that we changed. There's also, I think, a bug with her gun right now. It sounds a little muted. Maybe they're just keeping that permanently, but the gun sounds a little muted. I think they'll probably fix that. So, Vindicta, winner, might need to be tuned back a little bit in a couple of weeks. IMO, but we'll see how she enters the top echelon of the game, because how I play her doesn't matter because I'm an emissary player and I'm probably still going to lose more games than I win with her. So that's fine. Viscous. Gooball can no longer carry Earn. Nice, man. I didn't even know that was a thing. The emissary player moment. Yeah, I don't know. Viscous changes. Looks like he got a little bit of buffs, which is nice, because Viscous was a character I didn't see a lot. Warden. Warden falls into the category of Drifter for me, of just like, I saw people complain that he wasn't that good, and I agree with you that he wasn't that good, but like, who wants to play against Warden? Like, a lot. Who is just like, man, I just want to see Warden in my games. He is so interesting of a character to play against. I think this character needs, like, a full-blown rework, IMO. I'm saying that as an emissary player, I understand, and you gotta have easy characters in the game and all that kind of stuff. He's just really boring and kind of lame. I don't think, I mean, he gets buffed. I don't think that this moves the needle for me a lot. You know, he'll be a little bit better. Boring, lame, stupid poo-poo character. Moving on from that. Wraith. Wraith got like a full-blown rework as a character, which is nice because Wraith was a character that I did not see a lot recently at lower elo, and I saw top players saying that she wasn't really relevant as well. It's nice to see that Wraith is back. I think she might be a little too strong right now I played one game against her and she like hard carried the game, like really hard, despite inting the entirety of the laning phase. The telekinesis change is interesting, but the telekinesis change is confusing to me. The new way it functions is cool, but I really hate that they made it a point-and-click ability instead of making it a projectile like it was before. I understand Counterspell can counterspell everything. It's the all-encompassing item. I understand all that stuff. But it's confusing to me that like a character like Shiv is removing his point-and-click execute ability, and we're giving Wraith the immediate point-and-click stun ability back, and now she can move you to a location that she wants to, like aim it, like throw you back into her team, or throw you, you know, a situation where you can't escape as well, or something like that. And you can't counterspell it as easy anymore, which I do not like. I'm not a fan of that in particular. The card trick changes are awesome, man. Like, that is so on theme for the character. This is crazy, by the way. Like, unlimited ammo is crazy on this. She is going to be good, I think. I think she's going to be very good. Telekinesis change, I think, is a win overall. A little bit of a loss on the point-and-click thing. It's just confusing to me, right? I'm not a fan of the point-and-click stun ultimate idea, or the point-and-click, like, you just die ultimate idea. I'm not a fan of that. And I understand, like, oh, you're a Vindicta player, you point-and-click and they die. It's different when it's a stun that you then get killed by, in my opinion. So, yeah. Anyways, that's just my thing. You can agree or disagree. That's totally fine. Yamato got some buffs. One of the things that I was most happy about is they fixed this bug on the tier 3 flying slash. That it would just cancel before you got to your allies, and I died several times because of it. It made it almost like, you would buy this last every time. And now they've changed it to a point where you might actually want to buy it not last in the build. Like, I feel like there's actually decisions that you make on Yamato now with how you build your abilities that you didn't have before. That being said, I don't really understand why this ability got buffed. Like, the 40% movement slow that it gets on tier 1 is... wow. And, like, this is now just in the base. This is a nice quality of life change, but I thought Power Slash was a really good ability already, you know? Flying Slash, you know, it gets charges now, which is interesting. We will see how that works at the top of the game. Most Yamato builds I would see would build it last, but maybe some people will find something to build it earlier. We'll see. Crimson Slash got a couple of changes. It's nice to see. Yeah, it's nice to see that. Shadow Transformation. A little bit of a buff. Nerf to the cooldown a little bit, but you're buying compressed cooldown on her most of the time anyways for that. So, that's nice. It's nice to see. Okay, we've reached the end of the patch notes now. I've rambled for a very long time. Let's talk about my overall thoughts about this. Like I said, you know, I read the whole disclaimer earlier. I am not sitting here claiming to understand everything to a perfect level. I'm not claiming to say that I know something is objective fact. There are some things that I really like about this patch, That being, I feel like there's a clear direction that the devs are taking the game. They want the games to be faster. They want the games to be more wacky. You can tell with the way that they have just buffed basically everybody. You know, a couple of exceptions in there. A couple of notable things as well. Venator is untouched, which I thought was interesting. I was almost positive that melee Venator was going to be nerfed, but maybe they thought that if they took that away that he would just fall completely out of the game. I'm not sure. He didn't, you know, he felt like a more fair Abrams with his melee thing. So that's nice. But like I said, overall direction and design, good. There's a clear vision here. They want characters to be stronger overall. They want games to be faster. We see that with some of these changes to the macro of the game and the troopers and tower bounties and stuff like that. That's nice. Love to see that. There are a couple things that I'm not a fan of. First of all, there are just a couple of characters that I think need reworks, like Warden. Personally, I think needs a rework to go along with his new model that he's going to get at whatever point. Buffing him is whatever. Whenever Warden is really good, I don't think the game is fun at all because he's everything that we don't like about strong characters. Whenever characters are tanky, unkillable machines in certain forms, it's just not fun. And he's one of those characters when he's strong. I don't think that he's there right now, but we need to be careful with that, with like having him get there, kind of a vibe. I think Drifter got buffed a little too hard, personally. I think that his strength in the lower ranks is obviously overstated because lower rank players don't know how to play around him, myself included. I think his strength in the top ranks was a bit understated, as shown by the Deadlock Night Shift where he was picked a couple of times right before the patch. I think that he'll be one of the first characters to be nerfed, probably, because he is obnoxious to play against when he is turbo-fed, and he got buffed really, really, really hard. I think that Vindicta probably got buffed a little too hard with the way that flight works. Now, we'll see. Maybe they'll keep it. I'm not sure. But I'm just being honest. I love Vindicta. I play Vindicta. I'm terrible at Vindicta. She needed buffs, and she got the changes that I wanted, including a Crow rework that I didn't expect, which was nice. But we'll see how those flight changes end up, if they end up sticking around. Okay. Anything else? Oh, yes. I wanted to say this. I uploaded my Deadlock Devs Have a Decision to Make video, where I talked about the whole Jungle Camp timer situation. Jungle Camp timer mod situation that happened. It's about a week ago at this point, since that tweet was originally posted. Like, the main one that blew up and started the conversation. That video is the first video I have ever posted about Deadlock, and is now the most viewed video in my channel's history. I can check right now. Let's see how many views it has right now. 451. 451 views. My oldest video that had more views was I made a Marvel Rivals video, sort of like video essay thing. My first ever YouTube video I made on a character named Hela, if you've ever played that game. It had 412, and this has surpassed it. So thank you for that. Thank you to everybody who interacted with that video, commented, watched, maybe somebody shared, maybe somebody subscribed, I can't actually remember. But thank you for the support on that. I'm going to continue working on videos and stuff like that, which is nice. It's really nice, and it's really encouraging to have that stuff happen, so thank you. I'm going to continue working on I Made Deadlock Beat Itself. Deadlock Dailies will hopefully be as often as possible daily. This is the second Deadlock Daily. Yeah, I think that's everything. Cool patch. If you happen to watch this, let me know your thoughts about the patch. If not, that's also totally fine. So, yeah. Have a good one. Peace. Alright, emergency addendum to the video. As I was recording my patch notes reaction, they released a minor hotfix patch. You can see 42 minutes ago, like I was literally mid-recording. It must have released like right after I started. So I'll talk about a couple of these changes. Golden Egg Goose. Cool. That item got buffed a little bit. It did seem a little weak on the surface, but like I said, this is a niche item for certain characters. Torment Pulse damage reduced. I assume that's spirit scaling right here. I don't know what the 0.25 is. It got nerfed, so that's cool. This needed to happen. I don't know if that's long enough. I talked about that a little bit in the video. I don't know if that's long enough, but Ivy Entangling Thorn, Spirit Scaling reduced. That ability, I didn't notice that it like stuns you now, or actually I shouldn't say that because someone's gonna tell me it's done that for 2 years and I just haven't noticed. It did like grapple you now, so to see that the damage reduced a little bit is nice because it is a giant AoE. Paradox, the grenade got nerfed some more. I thought I got nerfed yesterday, but maybe I was remembering that wrong, even though I literally just looked at the patch notes. Time Wall, slow duration. Yeah, Time Wall got buffed. That's good for that. And a couple of QOL changes to Paradoxical Swap. So that's nice for that, I guess. Silver nerfs couldn't even make it 36 hours or 48 hours, so congrats, Silver players. You got what you wanted. Your character's probably still going to be banned anyways. Viscous, a little bit of a nerf. Interesting to see that. Wraith got a couple of things. There was always going to be some sort of issues with the way her stuff worked when they rework a character, like, you know, so sweepingly like that. There was always going to be some bugs, like this one right here, that needed to get fixed. They did feel a little strong, so it is nice that it got a little tuned down a little bit, which is nice. Telekinesis, yet again, it felt strong to me a little bit, so that's nice to see that got nerfed. Now, I did the really fun thing of I incorrectly... I was incorrectly recording, so now I get to go and record, I get to listen to myself talk and re-record the entire screenshot, or the screen sharing of me going through the actual patch notes, so that's fun.